All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm excited for today's deep dive because it involves something that's probably already in your pantry.
Oh, yeah.
It's chicken broth.
Okay.
More specifically, though, a recent recall of Great Value Chicken Broth from Walmart.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is it's not like the usual suspects like salmonella or something like that.
Right.
This recall is all about compromised packaging and how that could potentially lead to spoilage.
Yeah.
And we're talking like 12,000 cartons
Wow.
across 9 states,
Okay.
all with a March 2025 expiration date.
So 3 years out, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So to help us understand what that means and all the implications, we've got an expert in food safety joining us today.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's break this down a little bit. When we hear compromised packaging, what does that even mean? Like, are we talking like a tiny hole in the carton or something?
Yeah. I mean, it's anything that kind of disrupts that protective barrier that we rely on to keep our food safe, Tears, punctures, even faulty seals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And these things might seem really, really minor, but, a tiny breach is all it takes to let in those microorganisms that can cause spoilage.
That makes total sense. But I am curious, like, how often do packaging issues like this actually lead to recalls? Is this a common thing?
It's actually more frequent than you might think.
Really?
They don't always make headlines the way that, some of the bigger foodborne illness outbreaks do, but they're a really significant concern for the entire food industry.
Yeah.
There's a ton of research and technology that goes into preventing these kinds of problems, but unfortunately, they do slip through the cracks sometimes.
Okay, so now I'm picturing my carton of chicken broth in the pantry.
Ah.
What kind of bacteria are we talking about here? And like, if something's gone wrong, what would I actually see or smell?
That's a great question. So chicken broth, it's nutrient rich, which means if the sterility is compromised, bacteria can really thrive in there.
Oh.
We might see things like Clostridium perfringens. Have you heard of that one?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, it can cause some pretty unpleasant gastrointestinal issues if you ingest it.
Oh, great.
Or even Bacillus cereus, which can actually be more serious, particularly for folks with weaker immune systems.
Interesting. Okay.
So, in terms of what you'd see, the broth might become cloudy or discolored. There might be kind of an off smell, you know?
Gotcha.
If it just doesn't look right or smell right, trust your instincts.
Totally, yeah.
That's always your cue that something might be off.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I think that's something we can all keep in mind. But this is what I find really interesting about this specific recall. The notice states that there haven't been any reported illnesses yet. So why pull the product off the shelves if no one's gotten sick?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's a really good illustration of what we call the precautionary principle, which is a cornerstone of food safety,
Yeah.
It essentially means that companies are expected to take action even if there's just a possibility of a problem,
Right.
rather than waiting for someone to actually get sick and then having to react to that.
Yeah.
So better safe than sorry, especially when you're dealing with something as widespread as, a potential contamination that could affect tons of people.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But on the other hand, isn't that a lot of wasted product? Like, wouldn't it be more efficient to just wait and see if there's an actual issue before pulling thousands of cartons?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis involved for sure.
Yeah.
But you also have to consider the potential consequences of not issuing a recall,
Right.
Even if a small percentage of those 12,000 cartons were compromised and actually caused illness, the impact on public health, the company's reputation could be enormous.
Yeah, that's true.
And the legal ramifications could be pretty serious as well.
Right.
So, it's a judgment call, but in this case, erring on the side of caution is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of our listeners who are now checking their pantries right now, what should they be looking for specifically?
Yeah, so first, check the brand, make sure it's Great Value Chicken Broth. Then look for that March 2025 expiration date.
Gotcha.
And the final clue is the UPC code. It's 007874206684.
Okay, so if all three of those match.
If all three match, then dispose of the carton properly.
Okay.
And you can contact Walmart for a refund. They've got all the information on their website.
Perfect. And just a reminder for everyone, this recall affects 9 states, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, Missouri, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas.
Quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few. This recall really gets you thinking, though, beyond just, checking for recalls. Like, how can we as consumers become more aware of potential packaging issues in general.
Yeah, that's a great point. One simple thing you can do is just really inspect your food packaging carefully when you're at the store.
Yeah.
Look for any dents, tears, punctures. If a can is bulging or a seal looks broken, don't mess around.
Right.
It's always best to err on the side of caution and just not consume it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think, today we've learned that compromised packaging can be a sneaky culprit when it comes to food spoilage.
Definitely.
That companies often take a proactive stance with these recalls, which is good to know.
Absolutely.
And that we as consumers can actually play a role in food safety by being vigilant and, being aware.
Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway. We all have a part to play in this.
Absolutely. So this whole situation really highlights how complex the journey is that our food takes before it even reaches our table.
For sure.
And it makes you wonder what other seemingly simple items in our pantries, might have hidden vulnerabilities that we haven't even thought about. That's something for everyone to consider, I think.
Yeah, good food for thought.
All right, well, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to all of our listeners out there, stay safe out there, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.
See ya.
Bye.